Let's go very quickly now to our Abuja studios and talk to Osai Ojigo. He's the director of Amnesty International Nigeria. Thank you so much indeed for joining us on Sunrise Daily. What's your views to this development to this point at the moment?
Thank you very much for having me. So we've been following the incessant killings that have been happening in this sort of clashes throughout last year. And of course, at the beginning of the year, we woke up to experience another wave at an escalating level that we never thought would get to this point. And so for us, what is really shocking is that we are yet to find a concrete response by government forces, whether it's at federal level or state level, in terms of ensuring that those that are perpetuating these killings are arrested, are prosecuted, and actually the course of justice is allowed to proceed without any sort of fear or favor. And so it's really we're really reaching a boiling point of total anarchy. If you were to look at how things are developing, there's a lot of anger from different affected communities, and including those who actually are bearing the brunt of losing family members at this time of the year.
I understand that the government did send the military, I think the DSS also, to Benue State, and in fact the Inspector General of Police. So perhaps your statement is at this point a little behind the developments that we have, because those have taken place, and the Inspector General of Police, Ibrahim Idris, is in Benue State to try to see that the killings and the one-term destructions are brought to a minimal or totally stopped. But that's on the one hand. Let me ask you this question. Do you feel that the efforts that have led up to this development was good enough to have, say, stopped this kind of attacks, especially looking at the anti-open grazing law in Benue State?
I think that there are a lot of factors that have actually contributed to this hike in the situation. And what we need to recognize is when people feel that their positions, their security is not being protected, they take the law into their hands. So the law is one thing, but then there are other factors that have also contributed to the situation. We are seeing increasing demands for access to resources in these regions, whether it's by the herdsmen or the farmers. We are not recognizing the role climate change is also playing in these factors. And so when we try to deal with this issue in terms of, well, this is a mere disagreement between two different forces or stakeholders, we lose the point. But primarily, and this is one of the things we try to raise, especially in our work, is that where a wrong has been committed and it has not been addressed, this would continue. And because people feel helpless in this situation, we're also seeing a lot of reprisal attacks occurring. So the law is just one in several elements that is contributing to this. And yes, you did point out that, yes, forces have been deployed in the states and in neighboring communities. But what we fail to realize is that this is a pattern that we see occurring all the time. A killing occurs, the security forces come into the community to maintain peace, to ensure that there are no further killings. But no one addresses the issues of those that have been killed. And no one talks about what they've done in previous investigations that they've carried out. And so you're getting to a situation where people don't have belief in the system that anything will be done. In fact, in some communities, based on the people we spoke to, they feel that when security forces do appear, it is to ensure that it is to prevent further killings, but not to address their own needs and not to take those needs seriously. We're hoping that in this current situation that this would change, that there would actually be prosecutions that will be followed through, and that the people can actually, we can actually deal with this as a long-term strategy rather than just a short-term fix. Send people in, then after a few weeks you leave. You actually put things in place to ensure that there are no repeat attacks, but most importantly, you are gathering the information that you need in order to bring the perpetrators to justice.
You just mentioned that this is not the first time that this is happening, but what the outcomes is where the problem is. Do you see, for instance, looking at your research and how you've looked at this kind of situations in the past, do you feel that something will come out of this now that we have got the security agencies in place in Benue?
We are not very confident because oftentimes it has been a short-term fix, like I said. They come in, they calm down the situation, but as long as you don't have the relevant justice officials on ground to ensure that people are actually charged to court, that you can identify perpetrators of these crimes on both sides, that you address this issue of impunity, because that is what is happening. People feel a lot of those involved in these acts are getting away with it. And we also address the root causes of it. On the one hand, you have a clash between two different communities or two different stakeholders. On the other hand, we're not looking behind the issue to find out who are those sponsoring these people, who are those inciting this violence, who are their taskmasters, because until we address that, then there seems to be some sort of protection being offered by those, for example, whose cattle are being headed across these communities. Because somebody needs to be responsible for it, and we need to be able to identify who those people are in order to tell them, look, the people you've hired to move your cattle in these grazing areas are creating mayhem, and you need to address that. And until that is done, we'll just be dealing with it at the surface level.